And welcome back to Vanessa's podcast. Thanks everybody for listening. Merci à tous pour écouter. Aujourd'hui, je vais lire une partie d'un livre que j'ai écrit et j'ai pas eu beaucoup de réponses. C'est un livre que j'ai adoré écrire, donc I would love to receive feedback. So today I'm reading, I'm going to read as much as I can of my book called The Killer by the Railroad, and I would love to receive feedback. I haven't received any feedback, maybe one or two. It was so long ago. Took me a long time to do this. This book was part of a crowdfunding campaign. I also write it while I was doing the campaign with a group of people who were doing the same thing, where we were learning how to promote and create an audience around the book we were creating at the same time. And I just want to share parts of it and see if some of you can tell me what you think, what you like about it, if there's negative feedback, positive feedback, all of it. All right, so I'm going to get started now. Let's go. So, The Killer by the Railroad, Chapter 1, Benjamin the Little Prodigy. Benjamin was just a little boy when he started to play the piano. His mother always encouraged him to play in religious ceremony and wedding. Whenever they could, they would be invited. He will be the youngest little boy surrounded by a group of older kids that sang chorales and danced in harmony. Benjamin had a short temper. He was very intelligent, dynamic, and very well-oriented and focused. He looked like he was 12 when in fact he was barely 9. And he showed up as well-educated with good manners, and his 3 brothers were already in college, and his stepsister was 14, and she didn't like music at all, and she spent her day watching TV or on her phone with friends. Maureen, his mother, was born in Netherlands, and promptly after graduated from music school and earned a master in music education, she moved to Australia. She turned her passion upon her last child. None of the others had the talent that Ben had. He was just a little prodigy. One morning, he woke up at 4 a.m. and shouted, "Ah, I can't see!" His mother ran over to see what the jargon was all about. When she opened the door, she found Ben crawling under the dresser, looking like he was trying to grasp onto something. She wondered what in the hell he was doing over there. She shouted, "My son, what is going on? How did you get under the dresser? And why are you putting on one of your properly ironed pants from its hanger?" she asked. He answered, "I don't know. I fell over something and I couldn't find my way out," while sobbing and tearing apart. Every single tear throughout the back every single tear was going down in agony throughout the back of his eyes. "Ah, I can't see." She turned the light on and carried him to the bed and asked if you could see her hand. If she could see her hand, but he shook his head no. Then she tried with only using her finger, but she obtained the same result. It wasn't logic, she thought. It must be developing some sort of eye inflammation that obstructs the cornea, part of his vision optical nerve. She brought him to the bathroom corner and cleaned up his tear and washed up his eyes and hand, decided to go to, and he still didn't respond to the light. She ran down the stairs while pulling him by the hand and decided to go to the emergency room immediately, just in case this was a sign of a stroke. Or even worse, perhaps a fatal disease, she thought to herself. She didn't want to risk his life by waiting, so she drove as fast as she could. She didn't even have time to let his sister know. But she left a note by the breakfast table that said, "Sophie, I had to bring your brother to the ER. I will explain in my return. Eat your cereal and go to school with Mrs. Hawkins. I already asked her to drop you off." Marilyn wasn't the type to worry over little things, but when she needed to be, she was, and no one would stop her. She arrived at the entrance of the emergency room in less than 10 minutes, which usually takes 15. In a few minutes after, they brought Benjamin in for a consultation and examined his eyes. When the nurse returned, she affirmed that he was developing a rare eye blindness disorder related to dust, that it was genetic, but due to a certain virus parasite inside dust that will easily infiltrate into a children's eyes because they were closer to the dust. And Ben had played over the old carpet they had since birth, a carpet that was already in the house when they moved on, but that had sentimental memories from the original owner, and she wanted to show her respect by keeping it. Now she knew that as soon as she was getting home, she was going to toss this old rug and bring it to the attic. They were living in a 3-bedroom house. Charles, her husband, had died when Ben was 2, from a pancreatic cancer and many other digestive diseases. Charles had been a wonderful father to his kids, and it was sad to see him live this way. But they will visit his tombstone every Sunday and discuss with him all the great things happening at home. They usually cried for an hour and then had breakfast near the lake. A three of the boys spread out to different countries such as Portugal, Japan, and Indonesia, and will come back for Christmas and sometimes spend a few weeks during winter breaks. Benjamin was in good hands. They had already scheduled a session of testing and hoping to allow him to regain his vision within a year. But for a year, he would not be able to play piano, so he would have to listen to audiobooks and just put him in a blind class for gymnastics and hired a teacher to instruct school in their home. He was only in 4th grade, so it wasn't that big of a deal to miss a few days, that he could always catch up later. Ben was a little terror. When he wanted to be, he was used to his mother's immediate response on any of his caprice and demand. He knew how to get her feel guilty and get him what he wanted right away. But the love and the share was enough to carry the respect of the relationship. On days Ben didn't get what he asked for, he'll punch the walls and play with the fridge doors by opening it wide and slapping it violently. Some other time he'll try to punch her, but he never succeeded. Or go steal candies without permission and hide them under the blanket while watching his favorite shows. His tantrums were never too long and easily resolved, but he hated to be wrong, so if you told him he made a mistake and he lost in video games, he would maintain that he didn't lose, and he would persevere for hours until he mastered the game. Marilyn was taking good care of him and the house. The neighbors were cordially good, inviting people with lots of grace and delicacy intent. and the village was decorated of voluptuous daffodil and anemone flowers that were brought up by vintage garden shops selling them by the dozen. One of Marine's favorite flower was a cute buttercup and petals, along with pink roses. She had 3 good friends living near the center of the town, with who she had prepared children's festivity and participate in local concerts and school plays. The school loved their volunteers, and they were going to miss her since she was having to keep Ben at home until he regained his view. For a year, they adapted to the situation, and despite the fact that Ben could not play, he found new ways to get his mind busy. By playing his robot decryptor Enigma games that never ended. Each time he'll attain a new level. A new one will appear and become more and more difficult. But after a day or two, on a specific game, you'll simply switch to another puzzle game that requires you to have good logic and good common sense. When time got out, Ben simply didn't want to play and just lay in bed watching TV and eating probably more than he should have, but Marine never allowed him to play in bed longer than a day unless he was really sick. 3 days a week, they'll go to the bridge and put on their rollerblade, and she allowed Ben to chase the pigeons and throw rocks in the water. After a few miles, they'll stop by the zoo and go watch a new DVD release. On Friday, the parents of the neighborhood would organize a kids' party and alternate between houses. They'll rent a bouncing castle and order a few pizzas and allow the kids to watch TV until 11 p.m. There were a dozen of kids of Ben's age within 5-mile radius, and many of them loved to play tennis or ping pong in a nearby abandoned barn that only the kids knew about. They'll meet there every day after 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. A few bigger kids will be there and watching out for the little one. In town, they also had a very famous water fountain that attracted a few tourists because it was built in over 500 years ago from an Italian sculptor that had been living on a residency, a starving artist living on water by the river of Italy, dancing in the rain and singing near the fire. This little man was called Zigolo and discovered his talent for sculpting at 13 by assembling piles of wood for a fire pit and getting access to many tools to earn a few books during holiday season. His father raised him alone and died when he was 10, and he was left on the street of Italy. But his father taught him good values and morals, so he did not associate it with the street people and the needy of a dark corner. He desperately wanted to become something despite his inability to have a home and a bed to sleep in. He made enough money to rent a room in a houseboat, but the owner was there drinking days and night, making him his slave, and he took it because he was too afraid to complain. He was grateful of this old fat man that just wanted some company and someone to hear his stories. He tried to help Bobby the best way he could, but Bobby didn't want to be helped. He just wanted to keep drinking and was feeling too old and too tired to have the force to quit. He works from home selling car insurance, and once a week he'll drop by the office and drop his paperwork. His houseboat looks like a workplace: fax machine, copier, paper everywhere, and a few devices here and there, and he would spend 4 hours on the phone every single day. That is what kept him alive, speaking to others and feeling appreciated. He knew that his voice was his